I'm Dr. Jessica Henderson. I'm Director of Science at Instruction Partners, and I want to share with you some conversations we've had over the last few months with some inspiring science education leaders across the country. Through those conversations, they've shared insights and takeaways that we can use to chart a path forward for science education over the next few years. What has been clear from each conversation that we had is that our recent shift in science education toward a phenomena-driven, coherent, three-dimensional type of instruction that centers student experience and the knowledge that students bring to the classroom with them, that shift is as relevant as ever. In fact, it's that shift and a commitment to that vision that's going to support us in making sure every student has access to grade level content in the coming year, no matter what their experience was with science instruction last year. Let's jump in. Takeaway 1, impactful science instruction progressively strengthens conceptual understanding of big ideas through scientific practice and by cutting across disciplines to help students make sense of their lived experience and design solutions to real-world problems.
We know that there needs to be some other type of sense-making activity around what you're listening to or watching or reading. And that's true in classrooms. Teachers can't just explain science or have students watch videos of them explaining something to children and expect that students are just going to absorb it like a sponge. That's just not how learning works. Kids, whether they're in school or not, are out there or in the world, and they have knowledge and they have experiences. And we have an opportunity pre-pandemic, now, or after the pandemic to connect to their real life experiences.
So what I know works is a student-centered approach that involves an instructional model with an intentional accessing and engagement of student thinking to get their ideas out on the table. So you have, for not only yourself as the teacher, but other learners in the class, you know what kids are thinking, or at least you have some good ideas about what kids are thinking. And you bring to that access, engagement, surfacing of student thinking, a pretty deep understanding, a rich background in pedagogical content knowledge, so that you are aware of common student ideas, what we might have called back in the day, misconceptions. So you're aware of those, you're listening for those, and then you have high quality instructional materials that then help guide student learning in ways that allow them to have those transformative learning experiences. In other words, their thinking, their ideas are changed in substantive ways toward more scientifically accurate explanations of phenomena.
Takeaway 2, the consequences of using instructional models that do not center phenomena and strengthen conceptual understanding are long-lasting and can exacerbate inequities.
The fact that I wasn't taught in a way that supported conceptual development meant I had all these gaps. That attempt at a one-size-fits-all approach might work for some kids and not other kids. It might work for some kids temporarily, but then stop working for those kids at some point. And it really has made me have a significant amount of buy-in to foundational understanding, conceptual understanding in any discipline being more important than memorization or success on standardized testing, because that to me didn't show evidence that I actually understood what was happening.
Right.
Yeah, we will further the inequities if we revert back and focus on catch up and start rewarding what would now be considered racist practices in the classroom, right? Pushing memorization, pushing for coverage.
What I've heard from conversations with leaders from around the country is that some teachers who had made strides in shifting to more student-centered instruction that rubber band or that pendulum is swinging back. We're losing that stretch, and we're going back to things that we can make work, and I'm putting make work in quotations, because everything is just so difficult. Everything is so hard in this environment. So it feels like we need to hang on to personal connections and student-centered approaches, or learner-centered approaches, whether we're talking about kiddos or adults.
It actually wasn't until I began teaching that I started to recognize that there was a certain way that students learn naturally in a science classroom or in other classrooms. And what I mean by that is that it began to be apparent to me, specifically in the teaching setting I was in early on, which was in an alternative education setting, that if students engaged with something that allowed them to connect to their own worlds, they could draw on background experiences and understandings to help them understand this new piece of content or concepts that I was trying to teach them in science. Sometimes we're more focused on the steps that they take to get the outcome that we expect, right? Or to analyze data from the outcome. But really, it's that outcome of the investigation or that phenomenon that's presented that is our starting point for students in deep learning in science, in a way where they'll hold on to it and they'll be able to make connections between the learning they have and a novel or new situation, which is what we hope for students.
Takeaway 3, transformational professional learning mirrors the vision for science instruction.
High quality instructional materials provide a lever for systemic change. Getting those high quality instructional materials in the hands of teachers prepared to use them is absolutely critical to equitable learning experiences. Now, elementary teachers, middle school teachers, high school teachers may have slightly different needs. Elementary teachers tend to have greater needs in terms of content deepening. High school teachers may have greater needs around PCK. In other words, what's the pedagogical content knowledge that I need to support kids in figuring out these problems? But teachers frequently don't bring to their classrooms the kinds of learning experiences that we're talking about for themselves. And so ensuring that teachers have had opportunities to learn is also an equity issue.
The actual way to shift thinking, which is both true for students and teachers, is to actually have them live it and do it. Every time we do a workshop of any kind with a person who's new to this way of learning, as soon as they start to experience it for themselves, they immediately give feedback that's like, oh, this is what you're trying to do. This is going to be so great for the kids. This is incredible. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if my kids can do it, but I see the value in it and I see how important it is. Help me get there. And they need that immersive experience in order to like have those aha moments. We also have been working with administrators similarly to help them experience what the learning is, to actually get a science AP or even a principal to do a science activity from the perspective of a science learner and say, oh, this is what you're trying to do. Now I see it. Now I can back it. Like now I can give my support for it. What do you need? How can I help? That is like, to me, the like in teacher ed right now, one of the most important things that I think works and we need to continue doing no matter what.
When the framework came out and I began to read it, I also had the opportunity to go through several sessions or series of professional learning sessions with a gentleman by the name of Brett Moulding, who was an author of the framework for K-12 science education. And when I would go through his professional development, he would engage us in investigations of phenomenon or those natural events that happen in the world, or set up situations to mirror those events. And often he would engage us in phenomenon that were closely related to maybe the science of earth and space science, which I didn't have a strong background in. And through those experiences of engaging with a phenomenon and really thinking about what do I know, or can I begin to explain from my own background experiences about that phenomenon, and then being provided additional learning opportunities where I could take new pieces of knowledge and add to my current understanding to further explain that phenomenon really set me on a path of fully understanding that for science, in order for students or myself as a learner to learn deeply, you really have to be able to investigate a phenomenon and work towards explaining that phenomenon. And that entire process of investigating and explaining a phenomenon, really, the deep learning happens when you as a learner or I as a learner can gather more information to refine our thinking, to add to our thinking, to develop more complex ways of understanding and knowing to explain that phenomenon.
These conversations all serve to identify a North Star for our national, state, district, and school leaders who make decisions every day that directly impact the science, teaching, and learning that students experience in our classrooms. It is vital that we champion a model of instruction that provides access to students, not in spite of their experiences, but because of and through the experiences that they bring to the table. It is also vital that we provide transformational learning experiences for our teachers and leaders to generate buy-in to this science vision and to also deepen their understanding of what science education can be and should be for all students.